much. And now we move on to the update by the COVID-19 Incident Management Team Lead, presenter Mary Richardson. So I shall hand over to Mary. I think there's a PowerPoint presentation which will be going up on the screen. Is that right?
No, there's a paper that's been circulated to council, and lots of the information is actually online public to see as well. So today I'm just going to focus on council's response as we move to level 3, and so we'll be focusing on both the services that will be stood up during level 3, and then also looking at the capital program under alert level 3. So just to give an overview, the priorities and what we're trying to do as we move to level 3 is actually about several things. One is actually and continue to provide our essential services as we have over alert 4, but in alert 3 we're also actually seeking to implement strategies which will lessen the impact of economic hardship and disruption on our residents and local businesses, i.e. we are seeking to flatten the recession curve. We're also seeking to support the well-being of our people and our communities. So in alert level 3 you'll see the attachment 1, which provides a summary of our service provision under alert level 3, and for the public that is available on our public website and under the newsline stories. Across council we're seeking to provide those services that council and residents need for the city to continue to function. We're trying to maintain and accelerate the pipeline of work to support local businesses and also to keep people in jobs, and at the same time protect the public health and well-being. You'll see in that table that we're resuming our capital programs and have been working on those with our contractors leading up to this. So actually most of them, if not all of them, will be able to stand up on Tuesday. We also, for the same reason of keeping the economy going and keeping people in jobs, we're resuming a large proportion of our maintenance services. And again, we've been working with our contractors and suppliers to make sure they are good to go. We're opening our transfer stations in a controlled, safe operation because we know that many of our residents have spent 4 weeks tidying up and clearing their household and garden and need to get into those transfer stations. And also we're reopening some of our public spaces, and most notable is the Botanic Gardens. So that's many people are commenting on how excited they are that will reopen. Our consenting and enforcement teams have, as you know, have been working remotely. They've all been available working remotely on level 4 because they've wanted to keep things going, and they've been very conscious that actually a lot of people have spent the time in lockup getting their plans and applications ready, and they are now starting to flow in even more strongly. So they are now also ready to step up with a number of site inspections and environmental health functions. So they are ready to go on Tuesday as well. Parks team, they have been out and about in our parks, both in our urban parks and regional parks, but people will now see more crews in our public spaces. And particularly with that wind that happened, I think it was last week, all the weeks are merging into one now, but they'll be out there tidying up what's left in our parks around that. One great aspect which our cemetery teams are incredibly pleased about is they will actually be able to have gatherings at cemeteries for people to farewell their loved ones. Call centre continuing to operate and will just be continuing that 24/7, so that actually service requests have been able to and will be continued to actually be actioned by our maintenance crews. And then at the same time we are doing a number of welfare support by our staff and our civil defence volunteers. That's 3,000 calls that have been made out to our residents over 70 who are living alone, which have been fantastic for both the people making the calls and for the older residents. Our staff has really commented how much they've enjoyed those calls and being able to do sort of some check-in on those people. We've had 1,730 calls into our 0800 helpline, and have actually supported the supply of 526 food parcels and vouchers out to families that are really facing hard times. And then at the same time, 21 outward bound flights, the repatriation flights, which again have been an incredible exercise, and we have had such amazing feedback from the flights, particularly the Lufthansa, but also the French Air France and other flights that have actually thanked us for the way we've supported their people to return. Also, what's not noted in the report but needs to be highlighted is the financial relief package that Council has put in place, and as the Mayor mentioned earlier, put in place very early in the package, so really knew well in advance how this was going to impact on people, and that relief was in probably within the matter of days of the lockdown. So that was rent relief to our people leasing council facilities or renting council facilities, and there was also the fees relief and refunds for people who had licences, had memberships, had booked things, so immediately moved to refund those or give people credits. As you know, you passed the rate payment extension, and then also for people leasing premises like outdoor spaces, they were notified and got some relief there as well. So a comprehensive package really looking at reducing that financial burden for our residents and businesses, and thereby increasing their disposable income so they can actually support themselves and keep the economy moving. The next thing I just wanted to highlight was the capital program, and you will see in that attachment the number of projects and services that are being stood up. These have predominantly projects that were live before Alert 4 and were shut down at the direction of government, and we ready to send them up immediately. Because they were already under construction, and we want to get those projects up live. We are contractually obligated in some ways and wanted to avoid any penalty under that. So actually, and as well as keeping the economy going. So they are all ready to go and they're stood up. There are a few other projects that we've brought forward, and again for two reasons. One, to actually get the economy going, but also it makes much better sense to do them now when either the commercial roads are not busy. For example, we can get in and do some roading work in those areas, but also for things like our facilities where we had work planned and on budget for swimming pool or pool repairs. We might as well get in and do those now while the pools are closed, rather than actually later disrupting people by closing the pool again while we do that work. So we also, our staff have been amazing in terms of trying to work with contractors to see if they can negotiate faster work, extended hours, larger crews, and that's actually all about avoiding any disruption in Alert Level 2. This capital list has been considered by the council working group of councillors. That's the chairs and deputy chairs of Three Waters, urban development, transport, sustainability and community, and finance and performance. So they considered those and endorsed them and instructed staff to move quickly in getting those in place, and have also actually asked the group to look at other priorities for fast-tracking projects within the existing capital program. So they will be meeting again to look at other options that we can do. And then finally, some advice around the governance arrangements. So there's some advice there that has been put forward by the Head of Community Governance and Support, and that was at the request of Council. What that advice says is that under Level 3, so the next, the 2 weeks that's proposed of Level 3, Council meetings continue to be held virtually with audio or audio-visual links, and be live streamed. That community boards meetings will start to be held through Skype and Zoom forums to actually just as discussions and briefings. But then also we are now preparing, if Council endorses this approach, we are now preparing for a level 2 where council meetings can be conducted in the chambers with the right protocols in place, and same with the community boards in a level 2 to actually have some physical meetings in the boardroom. So that's the head's advice around that, which has been endorsed by the IMT. So that's my report. I have the team who's also dialed in here. So we have Helen Beaumont from Three Waters, Richard Osborne from Transport, Nigel Cox from our recreation area, Andrew from Parks, and John from Community Facilities area. They can answer any questions people have about specifics of the work or the capital program. So thank you very much.
Look, thank you very much, Mary. And what I'm going to do, I've just got one question that isn't really a question, but it's just to enable you to clarify one more time the real decision that we made in relation to the rental space of footpaths outside our fabulous inner city, well, mainly inner city, but not exclusively, bars and restaurants that are right on the street and who are using those. Just to confirm that that from the 1st of March this year until the end of May, which is the initial decision that we've made, there is no rental obligation to be met, and that credits for payments that have already been made will be issued to those businesses. So that's the first question. And then I'm going to move to Andrew, who's going to give us a bit of an update on the meeting that the working group had for the benefit of councillors, but also for those that have tuned into the live stream. And then I've got Jimmy and Anne and Jake. So if you could just comment first on that, because one of a very well-known businessman went on one of the radio shows this week and said, how crazy it would be to have a situation where his tenants still had to pay for these areas that obviously they can't use right now, and so he, not being a tenant, didn't receive the notice that had been sent out from the council. So this is for clarification and confirmation publicly that we have dealt with this, that the tenants have received the information that they're not liable for rent during this period, but I think we are going to have to review that at the end, but before the end of May, because I think that we're going to have to extend that as part of a package of support for our businesses as part of our recovery approach.
Great. So definitely confirm that Bruce Rendell's on the line. He did the legwork, so
Yep.
you want to give the details, Bruce?
Yes, so all what you've said is correct, and in terms of the decision you made, you actually also gave us some flexibility for what comes after. The holiday is for at least 3 months, and you've got some flexibility for myself and my staff going forward, and we will be continuing to use that. Because one of the things we're really interested in is those businesses that can come up with innovative but safe solutions that are compliant at level 3. We want to help them, assist them, and ensure that there's nothing that we do will stop them trading in that situation. So we certainly get that message loud and clear.
And I think supporting them into level 2 and then giving them more flexibility, because I mean there will be a degree of sort of nervousness around the situation for quite some time yet, and I think the more that we can do to support them as they initiate safe and practices and safe environments for people to come together, I think that's what we've missed the most. Then it would be great to see that.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you very much. So, Andrew, would you like to just do an update on the working group, please?
Yeah, great. Thank you very much indeed. So, as Mary has signalled, the chairs and the deputy chairs of the relevant committees met informally and have contributed to guidance around reactivating work in the areas of transport, Three Waters, community facilities, parks and housing. Our primary focus, as staff's has been, is restarting works that had to be stopped as we went into level 4, which can restart in level 3. So really a strong focus on getting work crews back to work on Tuesday of next week. And then looking for opportunities to do work in commercial areas while business activity is low, while businesses remain closed, and while there's less traffic and less pedestrians. So really working with contractors to ramp up work and opportunity in commercial areas so that we can get work done while there is less impact on business and less more opportunity to get things done quickly. So working with contractors to fast track as much of that as possible, and changing work programs to focus on doing work in commercial areas first while businesses are closed, and then residential areas perhaps a little bit later once people are not spending so much time at home once we move into level 2. So a good example of that would be Riccarton Road, for example, where we can really push on with work down there while there's less business activity and traffic activity. Taking the opportunity to do maintenance work on playgrounds while we've got the playgrounds closed, and other facilities such as swimming pools while we've got the swimming pools closed and the pools drained. It certainly makes sense to take the opportunity to be doing maintenance work rather than causing disruption later on. It's easier for the contractors doing the work, and it certainly causes less disruption to users of the facilities or the opening of the facilities. So the primary aim has been to stand up as much work as possible as quickly as possible, accelerate work where there's the opportunity to do that, and really focus on getting activity back into the economy, to save jobs, to create jobs, to get on with work where we can while facilities are closed and while business activity is low in a way that really makes sense. The next focus of the group of chairs and deputy chairs will be to look at ways that we can reprioritise the capital programme, or that we might need to reprioritise the capital programme between now and the end of this financial year, and then very quickly move to a focus on looking at the capital programme as we move into decision making for the annual plan, realising that what was being planned is going to need to be reprioritised and changed as we come to making decisions in the annual plan process. So pleased to give that update, and happy to continue to lead this work with the chairs, and obviously further updates will follow.
Thanks very much, Andrew. So I've got Jimmy and Jake, Yanni and Sarah, so I'll try and keep a track on the emails and messages coming through. So Jimmy Chen.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I have 2 questions. The first one is regarding to attachment 2, some of the project. One is the home base center in here. The staff mentioned is continued with the concept design.
Jimmy,
yes.
Can I just interrupt for a minute? Because I think that it would be unhelpful if all of the councillors are going to raise individual projects. So these are projects.
But their presentation, I just want to know what's the time frame for all those stuff. Concept design, full design will be completed
for all of the projects, or just one specific project? Because if it's one specific project, then I think that it might be more useful that we get an update for the specific project sent through after the fact, because we could be here all day going through 100 different projects. So
okay.
Is it just that one that you want?
But the other one, the other one is the chair of committees, but it's not a committee as a whole. Based on staff presentation, will be brought to back to the business as usual commence on the 1st of July. But this transition time period, as a chair, whether we are eligible to engage with the staff regarding to the update status, regarding to the committee the situation, so and if that's eligible, what is a process, what's a channel we can engage with, particular for those the principal advisor?
Again, I didn't really want the public-facing meeting to be talking about the technical detail of how we're going to operate, but I can assure you that council chairs of committees can certainly talk to their principal advisors to talk about the work program and the priorities for the time ahead. So that's something that can be done now, and we will circulate again that advice to councillors so that they are fully aware of what that work might look like, and then as we prepare for both level, really for level 2, how that comes back to more of a situation as normal as it can be under the circumstances. So thanks for raising that, Jimmy. But yes,
okay, thank you.
Yes, we'll get you the details of that. Anne Galloway.
Thank you. Kia ora, everyone. Mary, thank you for this fantastic information that you've given us. A couple of things. In terms of lessening the financial impact, can you just clarify, if a person doesn't apply for a rates relief and they're late with their payment, will there be a penalty charged to their account in that situation?
For this one here, it's probably best if I get Diane Brandish, who knows this area, to speak to this one. Diane, are you there?
Good morning, everybody. Diane's not online. This is Len Van Hout speaking. Just for the clarification of that, at this point in time, only those who apply for the extension of time will get the penalty lock. Everybody that has not asked for a penalty lock and are late pay, they will be assessed at that point in time. But understand that until an assessment is agreed, a penalty lock will not be put in place for those accounts.
It may be that people don't realise that they're entitled to apply for relief, so it might be that there's considerable flexibility required in that space.
There's no doubt that that will actually be the case.
Right.
It'll be once again on a case-by-case basis, although this is not a thing that's been given lightly, and so therefore we have to ensure that appropriate processes are in place to ensure those who are impacted severely are given every opportunity to extend the payment terms.
Thank you, that's reassuring. And secondly, Mary, as we've seen in other places, there seems to be that we can expect a greater demand on welfare support. I'm wondering about food parcels and things. Where is the resource coming from to supply things like food parcels in the future? How is that funded?
So at the moment, our staff and volunteers are doing a lot of the work, but the actual costs of the food parcels will be reimbursed through the Civil Defence Welfare Package. Currently there's some work going on by central government and various welfare teams to actually see what is the longer term strategy around this, and I know that central government are working to actually address some of that. You would have seen some of that in the media already about additional food and food support they're giving out to food banks, and they're actually at the moment looking at about their longer term package.
Thank you.
It's great, thank you. Jake?
Hey, yeah, thanks for that, Mary. Hey, I just had a question on the governance arrangements. I'm cognizant of the fact that we're in level 3 now for 2 weeks, but that could be extended. I'm wondering whether there'd be a value in placing a hard date on when those community board meetings can resume as normal, given that at level 3, obviously the idea is that if you can work, you should work, and community boards are well placed to resume their duties.
Great. So
you have to work away from you have to work at home unless you can't, so it's still the same rule in that regard. But Mary, over to you.
Yeah. So we're meeting with community boards chairs at the moment, and we will come back with some advice around what happens if a proposal about what happens if level 3 is extended, what potentially some of the delegations that could be reapplied out. But at the moment we're working with 2 weeks and then into level 2, but we will come back with advice if at 2 weeks we're not going into level 2 and we're staying in level 3. So we're doing some work with the community boards and the chairs to get their views on that.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you. Yanni?
Thank you. I just had several questions. One, I just wanted to check in relation to the community board delegations. There would be nothing to stop us giving those back now or setting a date. So if we gave them back, you know, say for the 14th of May, what would be the issue with that if we agreed to do that today?
So that's just the question I've answered just before you came online, Councillor Johansson.
Sorry, let me be clear then. So my understanding is the community board delegations have not been exercised. We certainly have had no use of the other governance making community board decisions, things that would normally come under their delegations. So I'm just not clear what we'd actually be changing, given that we haven't actually used any of those powers to make decisions for community boards in the interim.
So I'm not clear now what you're asking. Sorry, Councillor Johansson.
So if we give the delegations back to the community boards now at a certain time, then that enables them to get prepared for making those decisions. What I'm concerned about is that between now and whenever we come out of level 3, if we haven't given the delegations back, then there's still a confusion about whether things are coming to council or going to community board for decision making.
Yes, so that was the question I answered, that we are intending to talk to community board chairs about this and actually come back with some advice to council quite quickly about what we would do in terms of either if we move to level 2 in 2 weeks, that would be one plan. The plan B is if it's not in 2 weeks, when we would actually move to be giving delegations back to community boards. So it's actually so there is no, it's like you saying, we'll come back with advice about setting a date about when we want to do that.
So given that it needs a formal decision of council, would we be able to do that next week? I think the Mayor's previously indicated we've got a meeting next week.
Yes, and I'll talk to John, and because it's John's team that's doing this, but I believe there's a meeting with community board chairs early next week. So we do want to talk to the chairs first before giving some advice to council or that decision being made. So we want to talk to the governance teams to make sure they're able to stand up the boards and the board chairs to make sure they're comfortable with that timeline. And we'll come back with some advice as soon as possible.
Right, and in the interim, are there any community board decisions that will then come to the full council to exercise our delegations or to the chief executive?
Not that I'm aware of, but we are going through those meetings.
Can you get me in? Mary, Mayor John Filsell here. I am aware of one decision that would have been made by the Linwood Central Health Community Board, which is currently scheduled to come to council on the 30th of April regarding the consideration of parking restrictions in Perth Street.
Yeah, sorry about that. That's right.
Okay. And the second question was in regards to, in your report, you've talked about the recycling, the curbside services, just in the attachment that we've got, the council report. And it says at 9.3, opening transfer stations if we can meet requirements for safe operation and contact tracing. Just to be clear, my understanding is that if people have been like keeping stuff that was going to go in the recycling bin that would have went to landfill, that they still won't be able to take that to the eco drop. In terms of plastics and glass, they have to put it in the yellow bin.
So we can give out some details, but also Helen Beaumont, who's on the line, may want to speak around these arrangements. Are you okay, Helen?
Yes, it's Helen here. So, Yanni, that's true. We're opening the transfer stations first for general rubbish and for green waste, and then 2 weeks later we'll open them for card, plastics and glass. So in those first 2 weeks people will have to use their yellow bins.
Right, and is there any particular reason why? Given that if people have done the right thing in terms of not wanting to put stuff to landfill and have been saving up their recycling separated, clean, not contaminated, why we wouldn't allow them to drop it off?
That is exactly the reason why people have been saving things up. They've been clearing out their garages, they've been tidying up their gardens, and there's an enormous demand out there. So for the first 2 weeks, we're going to deal with the rubbish and the green waste, and then we'll open for the recycling materials. We cannot cope with everything all at once. And even doing it in a staged opening, I think we should expect some congestion and some frustration, but we're trying to manage that as best we can.
Right, okay, thanks. I just wanted to check, thanks for the list of the projects. One of the things that's not clear is the time frame. So for Victoria Street and Hereford Street, while I appreciate we'd want to possibly do some of that work while businesses are not able to operate, it's hard to get a sense of when they can reopen. What the disruption will be. Is there any analysis that's gone into that?
Yanni, I am going to interrupt just on this one because it's exactly the same issue as I raised with Jimmy Chen. All of these issues are being dealt with and in detail. I mean, obviously, some of these decisions are taken in consultation with the actual businesses that are going to be affected, but all of this needs to be reported back in terms of a discussion that took place last night. So the working group only met last night to go through those. We're getting stuff underway next Tuesday, so we're supporting and facilitating that. There's no point going through individual project after project after project. The information that you want will be supplied to you, and that information can be provided after the meeting when people have got time.
Can I just be clear then, who's communicating back to the stakeholders? Like Woolston, for example, where they've had leaders...
Yanni, please don't do this at a public meeting. I'd just like you to just take it offline. I can assure you that the Woolston businesses are not affected by the immediate decision, and that certainly the Victoria Street businesses, they're all going to be spoken to. So people are going to be communicated with, and it'll be a combination of contractors and council staff. So sure. Can we just take it offline and we'll get that information?
I really appreciate the detailed list. There's lots of specifics on there, and I really appreciate that. The huge gap for me, the one project that's missing, which is a massive project, is the Woolston one. There is no information on that.
And it's missing for a reason, and that reason needs to be talked through.
So, and just to give the Mayor is 100% correct. We've clearly what the working group gave us the other night was a mandate to go and do some of those negotiations. So we will come back with specifics of details around dates once those negotiations are done. One of the other directions that the working group gave us was around to make sure we communicate this with widely with the public, as well as those negotiations with the key stakeholders. So we will be doing that widespread communication and also those negotiations. Certainly Richard Osborne can give you some advice offline rather than actually delay the meeting around both those projects you've
put in last Friday to get an understanding, and I still haven't had a response.
So he will contact you directly.
Yeah, great.
Right,
look forward
Sarah.
to it.
Thank you. And I know that we've focused on the relief for our commercial tenants, and it was really good. I went back over the resolution to check, and it was community and sports groups as well who will be who lease council facilities and things. One group I think that might be struggling at the moment is those with the community loans. So many of our community organisations with community loans who won't be getting any income at the moment to help pay back those loans to council. And I'm just wondering if any work's been done with them to help ease that, or if there's flexibility already in place.
John, would you answer that one?
Yes, I can. The funding team and the community development team have been in contact with over 200 organisations, including organisations who do have community loans. Will be looking at any undue hardship. We always take a flexible approach. If there are any particular difficulties, they'll be reported up to the relevant committee along with some recommendations. It's always been the policy of council to be enabling and flexible to get the desired outcome from the community loan in the first instance, rather than take a punitive approach. So we're contacting, we're understanding.
Yeah, but we've already been really proactive with our commercial tenants and the other community and sports groups over their rental stuff. I'm just wondering if there's something that we could do that was proactive and say we could, stop loan repayments for 3 months, that kind of thing at the same time.
To interject there is that we were proactive with those tenants because we knew they were closing.
Absolutely.
We're taking a more pragmatic approach with this because some people aren't affected and some people are. So we want to target the support that we have to those who are affected rather than blanket.
Okay, no, that's great. Thank you.
I think it's a useful point, though, that Sarah's making, Mary, and it's just, I guess, a note to self is that councillors are going to want to be doing a lot of supportive stuff in both the business space, the commercial space, and in the the residential groups or the community groups that are sort of linked into the council in some way, shape, or form. And I think that's very sensible to raise that in that context.
And that just when that comes back with the community loan stuff, when it does come, just making sure that we look at that that community loan percentage interest rate that we charge currently, because it's currently a set percentage, and we talked about this I think late last year, to make sure it was a until our
finances are clear to us. I think that everyone's going to be in a bit of a state of flux. Aaron, and then Mike and Tim.
So I've got two questions, Mary. First up is who made the call on us working remotely under level 3?
That is advice that we're giving to you today.
Okay,
so
because
you asked for that advice, and we're giving it to you today. It's up to you. The decision is yours, but that is our advice.
Oh, okay. So as a council, we could decide that we would rather work using social distancing, etc., and work from in council?
Yes, except I don't believe it complies with alert level 3. The alert level 3 is very clear that if you can work remotely, you are to continue to work remotely, and that there shouldn't be gatherings over 10 people. So, so that's why I don't think it applies. I have checked with other councils, and other councils at this stage, from what I say, are continuing to work remotely in level 3.
Okay, but I did see that. You must work remotely unless you're unable to. I think a number of us don't feel that we can, that the running of a city is an essential service and is so important, especially at this time when we can end up in quite a hole if we're not really on top of our game. So how would we get around that, and will it be coming to some sort of vote to whether we do work level 3 at council or not?
Can I just interject and ask you, is the DHB working remotely, or are they meeting in the room?
We haven't had that discussion since the level 3 announcements were made.
Right. So we can assume that they'll be moving into a meeting room. I mean, I can check with the chair today. I'll do that.
Yeah. Well, if I had a vote, I would say yes. I think the running of a city is an essential service.
Yanni,
you allow 100 people in a supermarket.
Sorry. Why should I call you Yanni? Aaron, we're not making any decisions in the next 2 weeks that impact on our annual plan, as far as I'm aware. So we're not making the annual plan decisions, for example. So in terms of running the city, I think that is a phrase that is used the organisation that is running the services that the city provides, but from a governance perspective, I want us to get together, because we do need to eyeball each other and have good quality conversations as we discuss the information that we're going to be basing our decision making on. But we're not making those decisions right now, so I don't see that there's an item on this on the resolutions that we have in front of us that says that we could overturn the advice of staff, and I mean, I would want further advice if that were the case, and maybe we could take that as a resolution that we seek further advice, legal advice as to the interpretation of the requirements, because the last thing that we want to do is, I mean, we have to also model good behaviour. So I mean, that's the counter to that point.
Yeah, absolutely. I just see the running of a city as an essential service. You know, we allow 100 people in a supermarket to buy chips and lollies and a bit of fruit, but
we're not running the city.
Running a city.
I think that's my point, is that you can use a phrase like running the city. The organisation is running the essential services. I agree that governance is essential and it's not ideal to do it remotely, but we actually can do it remotely, the decisions that are on our table at the moment. So I'm not going to take a vote today as to whether we accept the advice or not, because there isn't a resolution that's been tabled. But I'm happy to bring it back next week as part of the COVID-19 report, that we actually take a decision based on both the advice that we've received from staff and independent advice, if that's what you're asking for as well, in order to make the decision next week. But I'm not going to take a vote on a matter of this substance without proper advice and debate. And at the moment, we're not having a proper debate, we're having a disagreement.
Well, more than happy to receive that information next week. I believe Parliament are meeting next week, and I always try to model my good behaviour based on their good behaviour. So I'll look to see how that goes.
Parliament also makes decisions that take effect in terms of the implementation, and they have a cabinet style, a government that makes those decisions that are implemented by Parliament. So it's a slightly different set of circumstances. The cabinet have been meeting remotely, and I presume that they are going to exercise some degree of caution around who's in the room and who's not. So we will get further advice and we'll bring it to the meeting next week.
That'll be great. Now, I had one other question, Mary, and I don't know whether it should be coming from Council or Christchurch NZ, but we don't control them, we work with them. And given that we're New Zealand's second largest city, are we directly lobbying the government over the support for small business, medium business? Because beyond the wage support, there really has been nothing, and there's the fixed costs, and as a council we are affected by those fixed costs, because one of them is rates, even though compared to rent and everything else it's not a big one, but it's still one of the costs. It's something that they're not addressing, and as a city I feel we should be stepping up for all of our medium and small businesses as a council and saying, hey look, small and medium business really needs some support, can you lift your game? How do we go about that?
So if I could get Dawn to answer this question, because she's working with Christchurch NZ on the economic strategy.
Thank you, Ben. I'm sure that the board members who sit on Christchurch NZ will probably want to comment as well. Aaron, you're right. It's how do we have and continue to have dialogue with central government. It's important that we are showcasing what the challenges are, and we are working with Christchurch NZ. Christchurch NZ are also working with central government departments and talking to them very regularly about what the issues are that are facing. But if there are some more specific things, I'd be very happy to talk to you offline about those.
Yeah, because one of the big ones is the government have told all businesses to close, and then there's zero compensation for closing your doors. And even to hear an MP this week saying that businesses should have the money put away. I don't recall the government having the money put away to shut down the country for 7 weeks. I think they're borrowing it themselves.
But just in case, Councillor Ewan, you're not aware, I would suggest that you do go onto that website on MSD where you can actually search for different businesses and see how much they've been compensated so far. It's actually quite a useful thing to go in and look, and you can see the level of compensation that they've received from the government, and that may give you a feel about whether more or less is needed. But it's an interesting website to look at. I'll send you the link.
Yeah, if some have got rent subsidies, I'd love to see it, because all the feedback I've got is that none have, and yet they've been forced to close their doors. So yeah, I'll have a look. Thank you.
Yeah, and I don't think that the government isn't necessarily the only one that's intervening in this space in terms of the subsidy that's been paid. And I've spoken to a number of landlords who've told me that they have very specifically looked after their tenants that they want to have up and running as soon as they possibly can, and they've given them a rent break for the time being, and are then looking at a reduction that then is paid back over time. So, look, everyone's trying really hard to deal with what is a very difficult situation, and everyone has a different role to play in that. And I don't think we're going to look to central government to solve all of the problems. And as the point that I've made a couple of times this week that's been utterly misrepresented in certain places, is that there are some businesses that are going to go out of business, and I think our job is also to do everything that we can to minimise that number. And even if you were to cut the rental and to cut the rates, they're still going to go out of business. And to me, we've got to think of other more strategic ways and work in collaboration with others in order to get those on the table. But look, what I think, to get people surviving rather, what I think that we should do, and again I'll take this offline with the Chief Executive, but there's a lot more work being done to tease out the economic recovery strategy as part of the wider recovery plan for Christchurch and beyond. So I think that we need to bring that to the council next week, and I've been meaning to report back from my paper, but in a way it's the time is right that we really focus on what that recovery is going to look like. So, and I'm the biggest supporter of the SME sector. I think I've said it on a squillion occasions now that big business might be important from the nation's point of view, but the backbone of a local economy are our SMEs, and we have to be doing everything that we can to support them to stay afloat. I've got Mike and then Tim.
Thank you. Just wanted to ask a quick question. You spoke about that you're going to have a discussion with the community board chairs, but I'm just wondering, there's some really good information, I guess, around timeframes for delegations and what community boards are doing. Will that information be going out to all community board members today?
Which information? The information that on those attachments 1 and 2?
Yes.
Yes, we can definitely make attachment 1 and 2 available to community boards.
Great, thank you.
Tim?
Thank you, good morning. Just 3 quick questions. Mary, fantastic that our staff have been ringing for, I think you said up to 3,000 residents over 70. I was just wondering, the disability sector, is that included in that, or is that to be done, or is that being done by those groups that specifically look after those areas in our community?
Yes, we're trying to get a hold of MSD again, tried earlier this week, and it's on the list to do today again, is to actually talk to them with the suggestion that we do that outreach now to that sector. We have people available to do that and did the over 70s very quickly and efficiently, but we would need the data from Ministry of Social Development, so we're going to be making contact with them to discuss that with them.
Thank you very much, Mary. Second question, under level 3, although the Prime Minister said no inter-regional travel, but we're opening up the Botanic Gardens, I guess we have to be very careful to remind people that there's still isolation and still to stay home if possible. But how do we kind of relay that? Because the last thing we would really want to be encouraging is a mass exodus, if you like, from homes of stir-crazy people going to the Botanic Gardens. So, I mean, I'm just concerned about that. Is that a valid question or concern, or what are your thoughts?
Absolutely, and we actually have Andrew on the line. So Andrew, I know that you've got thoughts in place around that. So are you able to answer that, Andrew Rutledge?
Sure. Good morning, councillors. No, it is a good question. The government advice also recommends that you can drive up to 45 minutes. So it's a good question. Literally, we're simply going to monitor presence in the gardens and social distancing practices. We will have our staff on board, and if need be, and we do have to control access and or reconsider whether it should be open or not, we'll do that when we see the level of activity.
Thank you very much for that one. The final one, and I guess maybe it's an offline conversation, Mary, with John Filzell, but we talked before about community loans and council loans. There are a number of groups that we've got, or organisations that we've got, a couple of which are iconic to our city, that have loans, and I'm just wondering about relief to them, because in, say, the conference events market, etc., these are designed to have venues of which large numbers of people come to. Now, when we see artists, doing concerts and things online, it isn't supporting the venues, it isn't supporting the crews, because every time you have someone on stage, there could be up to 25 people that support them getting on stage. So, I'm just wondering, is it the best to talk offline to John or whoever with regards to these?
Yes, so these are some of the groups that we are being in contact with. I think it would be good, you'd have some insight and some knowledge, so it would be good if you could talk offline. We will be coming back with some advice around some of these issues, and it's particularly in those, I know who you're referring to, and I think we do have to do some work and come back with some advice about these and other groups. So, but yeah, if you give some more details to John or somebody from John's team, that would be great.
Okay, well, John, I'll catch you up later on today. Cheers, mate.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you very much. So we come now to the resolution, and I've just asked Joe to put an amendment on the recommendations so that we receive the update from the COVID-19 Incident Management Team lead. And now I can't read that because I've made my screen so small, but essentially noting that we will consider further advice on the level 3 requirements for council meetings next week. Is that what it says?
Yes, it is. Request further advice from staff on the level 3 requirements for council meetings at the council meeting on 30th of April.
Lovely, thank you. So I'll move that.
Sorry, just a question on that. Could that be extended to include the community board delegation issue that we discussed?
If they're in a position to.
If possible, or something like
that.
Yeah,
if possible. Yeah, no, that's fine.
I don't. Does anyone know what that meeting's for? Like, is there a big agenda, or is it just a?
No, we've only just looked at the agenda for it, but I'll send that out to you later on today once we've got a complete picture of everything that we're going to report to. So okay. I mean, it's been a bit of a moving feast. I've tried to manage agenda length because these meetings are very difficult to hold this way, and I've tried to manage the agenda in a way. And next week was a week that didn't have a council meeting in it, so we've thrown one in there as well. So so has that been added to the words that we've got?
we're going to add to that including community board delegations if available.
Yes.
If possible.
Okay. Yeah, if possible. It probably is possible, but I just want to give a little bit of comfort to staff that, that I know that they're meeting with the community board chairs, so there's a few things that we just want to just allow people breathing space to get it right. If I'll move that, do I have a seconder for it? Sorry, I can't see you all, so I need to bring up my screen. Oh, well, I can't see everyone. Who's that?
That was Aaron.
Right, thank you. Right, Aaron Kewen is seconded, so I shall put that motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. That's lovely. Thank you very much. Now, look, I'm actually going to propose that we have a short break. I mean, these are difficult meetings, and I know that people will want. I've been watching somebody having a coffee very jealously. We'll just take 10 minutes. So it's 11:06 according to my computer. So we'll start at 11:15. So that's actually 9 minutes. All right. If you could just